Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to this video series on Windows Server 2000 Livestream Part 2. Okay, Chapter 2, Historical Context of Windows 2000 Server, Understanding the Technological and Strategic Forces Behind a Pivotal Release. The development and release of Windows 2000 Server did not occur in a vacuum. It was shaped by the convergence of technological shifts, increasing entire demands, rising competition, and Microsoft's own strategic vision for dominating a networked business world. To fully appreciate the significance of Windows 2000, it is important to explore the ecosystem from which it emerged and the pressures it was designed to address. Windows from Windows NT to Windows 2000 and evolution. Microsoft's first true enterprise server platform was Windows NT New Technology, introduced in 1993. It was a departure from DOS-based Windows 3.x line and aimed squarely at business environments that required multitasking, stability, and security. Windows NT 4.0, released in 1996, built on this by integrating the familiar Windows 95 GUI into a server-grade kernel. NT 4.0 was widely adopted thanks to its support for TCP/IP networking, user access controls, and its ability to serve as a file, print, or application server. However, NT 4.0 had significant limitations, lacked true directory services, relied on flat domain models, inconsistent driver support, and limited plug-and-play capabilities, no native support for key security protocols like Kerberos or IPsec, clunky user and policy management, scaling limitations for large organizations. These weaknesses became glaring as networks expanded, security threats escalated, and web services became business critical. 2.2, the late 1990s changing IT landscape. By 1998-1999, the computer world was experiencing a seismic shift, the rise of the internet. Companies began moving beyond local area networks LANs to connect to the broader internet. This brought the need for secure remote access, firewalls, DNS integration, and web hosting functions. NT 4.0 only partially supported. Business expansion. Organizations were growing in complexity. They needed centralized control over hundreds or thousands of users, computers, and permissions. Features beyond NT's domain architecture. E-commerce and online services. With the dot-com boom underway, businesses demanded 24/7 uptime, high scalability, and application service support. Web presence was becoming a must, and the old models couldn't keep up. Security concerns. Security was no longer optional. Password policies, encrypted authentication, and secure network protocols were now enterprise essentials. The lack of these in NT 4.0 exposed companies to risk. 2.3, Microsoft strategy. NT 5.0 becomes Windows 2000. Originally known as NT 5.0, Windows 2000 was more than a version bump. Microsoft saw it as a chance. Retire outdated domain structure and replace them with Active Directory. Create a unified platform for workstations, servers, and enterprise applications. Integrate internet native technologies directly into the OS. Improve stability and scalability with a modernized kernel. support plug-and-play, USB, and hardware extraction that would rival Unix systems. The name change to Windows 2000 was both symbolic and strategic. It signaled a break from the past and aligned Microsoft's branding with the new millennium, an OS built for a connected, globalized digital era. 2.4 key competitors and industry pressure. Windows 2000 didn't launch into an empty field. It was released into an environment filled with serious competition, Linux and open source. Linux was rapidly maturing, especially for servers. It offered unmatched reliability, cost savings, and the support of a passionate community. Enterprises began experimenting with it for web hosting and file serving, especially under Apache and Samba. Unix variants: Sun Microsystems Solaris, IBM AIX, and HP UX dominated high-end data centers. These platforms were known for reliability and scalability, traits Microsoft wanted Windows 2000 to match or exceed. Novell Net were still the major force in enterprise networking during the 1990s. Novell NetWare offered robust directory services via NDS, Novell Directory Services, long before Active Directory emerged. Microsoft had to make a compelling case for business to abandon these trusted platforms and migrate to Windows 2000. Active Directory and deep integration of Internet services were their strongest answers. 2.5 Public and enterprise expectations. Because of the long gap, NT 4.0 and a prolonged development cycle, expectations for NT 5.0, Windows 2000 were sky high. Businesses demanded stability equal to Unix, security strong enough for the internet age, easy administration for distributed networks, smooth migration paths for NT 4.0, delays during development. Microsoft 2000 was over a year late, only added to the anticipation Microsoft needed this release to work and work well right out of the gate. 2.6 The Y2K moment. Interestingly, Windows 2000 release occurred in the shadow of the Y2K bug, a worldwide concern that older systems would fail at the turn of the century due to date formatting issues. Microsoft timed its launch to benefit from a renewed IT investment surge in Q1 2000. Companies were already upgrading infrastructure, and Windows 2000 appeared just in time to become the backbone of a Y2K safe future. 2.7 Reception and adoption. Despite initial skepticism, Windows 2000 received generally positive news for its stability, a dramatic improvement over NT, the power and flexibility of Active Directory, enhanced hardware support, the integration of enterprise tools like Group Policy and Windows Installer. However, the transition wasn't always smooth. Active Directory's complexity, higher hardware requirements, and the learning curve of MMC, Microsoft Management Console, meant that many organizations delayed adoption or required specialized training. Still, within 2 years, it became the most widely deployed Windows Server operating system in history at the time. 2.8 Legacy perspective. Today, Windows 2000 is seen as a foundation release. It introduced concepts that continue into modern cloud and hybrid environments, the core of modern Windows domain architecture, the administrative mindset around centralized policy enforcement. While it's long out of support and rarely found in production, the influence of Windows 2000 persists in every version of Windows Server in the structure of countless corporate networks. In summary, Windows 2000 Server emerged as a critical turning point in computing history. It was born from the need to modernize, compete, and secure enterprise infrastructure at a time of global connectivity and exponential business growth. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to plan and to install Windows 2000 Server, including hardware requirements, partitioning strategies, post-installation configuration. Chapter 3, System Requirements and Installation. Laying the groundwork for a stable Windows 2000 Server deployment before any of the powerful features of Windows 2000 Server like Active Directory, group policy, or enterprise networking can be used. A proper installation is essential. This chapter walks you through the critical aspects of planning, preparing, and installing Windows 2000 Server, including system requirements, hardware compatibility, and post-installation tasks. Whether you're setting up a test lab or restoring a legacy environment, a clean, well-prepared install is the foundation for long-term stability and performance. Minimum hardware requirements: CPU, Pentium 1.33 MHz, Pentium 2 300 MHz, RAM 128 MB, 256, 512 MB, disk space 2 gig, free OS only, 6 gig minimum for services, display VGA or higher, SVGA 800 by 600 or higher, file system FAT, FAT32 or NTFS, preferred input devices, keyboard and mouse, CD-ROM required for installation. Hardware supports up to 4 processors in standard edition, up to 8 processors in advanced server, 64 gig of RAM in data center server, PAE support, 3.2 pre-installation planning. Installing Windows Server 2000 is not about just booting from a CD and clicking next. A well-planned installation minimizes future rework and ensures the environment is ready for services like Active Directory or IIS. Key planning questions: what is the server role? Domain controller, file server, web server? Will it be part of a domain or a standalone server? How will storage be partitioned and formatted? What file system will be used? NTFS is strongly recommended. What drivers or third-party drivers are needed during setup? Let's go back up here. 3.3 BIOS and firmware preparation. Before installing Windows 2000 Server, ensure that BIOS is up to date. Unnecessary onboard devices, legacy serial ports are disabled. The boot sequence is set to prioritize the CD-ROM or bootable USB. This step helps avoid post-installation issues like failed device recognition or startup errors. Bootable CD-ROM. Windows 2000 ships with a bootable installation CD. Insert the CD, restart the machine. When prompted, press any key to boot from CD. Do so to begin installation. Boot from a floppy setup, legacy method. For older systems that don't support booting from CD, Microsoft provided a 4-disk boot floppy set. These disks initialize setup and load drivers to begin installation. Network-based installation. Using remote installation services, RIX or PXE boot from a development server was possible, but typically used in enterprise environments and requires pre-configuration. 3.5 Step-by-step installation process. Boot from the CD, press enter to begin setup, accept license agreement, press F8, select partition to install Windows 2000, create a new partition if necessary, delete or format old partitions, cause data will be lost. Choose NTFS for security, quota, and reliability features. 5. Set up formats and set up formats, the partition and copies setup files. Step 2, GUI based setup. After reboot, GUI mode continues. Select regional and language characters. Enter the product key 25 character license key. Name the server and assign an administrator password. Set date and time and time zone. Configure network settings. Choose typical for DHCP or custom for static IP, DNS, or WINS. Join a workgroup or domain can promote to a domain controller later. Setup completes, reboots, and presents the login screen. 3.6 Post installation configuration. Once the OS is installed, several key tasks must be performed to finalize the setup. Device driver installation. Use the device manager to verify hardware recognition. Install necessary chipset, video, network, and storage drivers. Legacy hardware may require manufacturer provided drivers via floppy or CD network configuration. Assign a static IP address if the server will run like DNS or AD. Configure DNS settings properly. AD requires DNS integration. Test connectivity using ping and IP config. Enable security settings. Rename the administrator account. Optional best practice. Apply local security policy settings via seccpol.msc. Enable Windows Update and apply the latest updates. If online, use a WSUS or patch CD. File system tuning. Convert FAT32 volumes to NTFS using convert C/fs:/NTFS. Enable disk quotas and compression if needed. 3.7 Installing Windows 2000 in a virtual environment. Modern IT professionals or students might want to test Windows 2000 without legacy hardware. Emulators and virtual machines make this possible. Recommended hypervisors: VMware Workstation Player, Oracle VirtualBox, Microsoft Hyper-V with caution. Requires legacy support. WM configure suggestions. OS setting type: OS type Windows 2000. RAM 512 MB, 1 gig. Disk size 820 GB. IDE recommended. Network bridged or NAT. Boot media ISO to Windows 2000 CD. Enable virtualization of legacy BIOS, IDE controller, and PS2 keyboard mouse support. Troubleshooting installation issues. Common error. Cause fix. NTLDR is improper boot sequence or bad. NTLDR is missing disk. Check boot order. Recopy boot files. Setup hangs at 34%. Hardware incompatibility. Remove extra hardware. Update BIOS. No network adapter found. Missing drivers. Drivers into ISO. Use OEM, dry floppy, or slipstream. Blue screen during install. ACPI or IRQ conflicts. Disable ACPI in BIOS. Use standard HAL. 3.9 Summary. The installation of Windows 2000, while straightforward in today's standards, represented a significant evolution in server setup at the time. Careful planning of partitions, network settings, and file systems is critical to success, especially when preparing the system for roles like domain controllers or application server. In the next chapter, we'll delve deeper into Windows 2000 architecture, including the role of the NT kernel, Windows, the Win 32 subsystem and how services and processes are managed under the hood. So I'm going to leave it here for this live stream. I hope you like listening. So we'll end it here for today. Thanks for everyone for taking the time to listen, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.